Okay, so in this tutorial, we're going to work with something called arrays. So far you've been working with variable types that hold only one value. Okay, so if I were to create a variable, called string and call it name and and give it a value of John, right? So right now it only holds one value. So let me just print out something here. Let's say name. Okay, so you get John. Very simple. You guys already know how to use that. But what if I wanted to hold more than one value in here? Well, I could kind of add it at the end. I'll just, maybe say Carl. But there's no real way of saying that this is two values because right now it's only one. And if you print it out, you kind of get both of them. What if you only wanted Carl? Okay, there should be an easy way of doing this, right? So that is where arrays come in. Um, with arrays, you can hold multiple values within one variable, and the way you declare them is actually pretty simple and similar to how you would declare just maybe a regular string. So the first thing you actually have to do, let me get rid of this stuff first. First, you have your string and your variable name, but instead of having just string, you have to include these little braces right here, the square braces. And these basically say, okay, now this variable is a array of strings. Okay. Now instead of name, I'm going to call it names because it's plural. It holds more than one value. So now equals, I still can't just start giving it values here. With arrays, what you have to do, an additional step here, is you have to include these two curly braces. Okay. Um, Now, and also at the end, you have to have your semicolon. Make sure you don't forget that. Now, in here, you can add in whatever you want. So, for example, John. Okay, uh, but that's only one value. What if you wanted to add another name in the list? For that, what you have to do is after these quotes, so you've added one value, and after that, you do a comma, and then you can add in another value. So I can say Carl, okay? And I kind of like to space them out a little bit. It's not necessary, but good to do. So now you have two values. Let's add one more. Say Peter. Okay. So now you have three values in one variable. Okay. Now, how you would access those variables? Now, if I were to just say names, okay, if I were to print out just the names variable and do start, you see that the output you get is really weird. You get a system.string and then the two braces. So what's actually happening is it's printing out the type of the variable. Right now it's just letting you know that it's a string variable within the system namespace, um, and it's using an array. So it's an array variable, okay? But that's not what you want. Let's say you wanted Carl, okay? How would you access that? So now this is where it gets a little bit tricky for new users because they don't know, how these are stored in memory. Okay, so I'm just going to add a comment up here just to sort of demonstrate. But basically, all the values that you add into an array variable, they have what they what we call in programming an index value. Okay, or I guess more simply, their position in the array. Okay, that's stored. So, but we'll use the word index. So right now, John has a certain index or position, Carl has a certain position, and Peter has a certain position. Okay, so if you were to say, if you're just coming in, you're saying probably, okay, John has one. This is on the second one. This is on the third one. It's not quite true. See, in arrays, the counting actually starts from the number 0. Okay, so John actually has the position of 0, Carl has 1, and Peter has 2. Okay, so this is something you have to sort of get used to. So if I were to try to get Carl, I have to use the number 1, okay, not 2, because even though it's on the second position, the index is 1. Okay, so how do I actually use the index and get the value? So when you're trying to print out something, or maybe store this certain value to some other variable or whatever you want to do, but in order to access this value, what you have to do is use the same square braces, okay, and now in those two square braces you have to provide the index. Okay, so now we want number 1, which is Carl. So if I were to run it, you get Carl. Okay, it's very simple. uh, and then if I were to get Peter, let's say 2. Now another thing I guess you have to keep track of is the values of the indexes, because if you only have 3 values in the string variable, and you use something like, I don't know, 3 or even 34 or something, if if I were to use 3 but the indexes only go up to number 2, what you'll get is this nasty error that the index was out of range. Okay, so this is something you have to keep track of. um, But for now, if you're just hard coding stuff and you know how much values you have or how many, um, it's not that bad. And again, later on I'll go into more detail how to you get the proper, I guess, use a proper way of printing out the values within an array. If you don't know the um, how many values they have. So for now, yeah, it's this is pretty good. And again, other than strings, pretty much everything else works with arrays. So you can have an integer array, let's call it numbers, and equals. You need to have the curly braces, and then inside I can assign values like 2, 5, 9. Okay. And if I were to print out numbers, let's print out 5. So 5 has an index of 1, right? Because it's 1 less than the actual position. So right now the actual position is 2, and 1 less of that is 1. So we're going to supply 1, run, you get 5. Okay, so you can try it out. Use different variable types, and so that's that. Um, I guess the another thing I can show you is to um, in order to see how many values the array has. There's actually a pretty nice way of checking. Um, so for example, in names, you don't know how many values it has. What you can actually do is type in the variable name, then say dot, and then say length. Okay, so if I were to run it, names.length is 3. Okay, so it has 3 variables in it. If I were to add something else, okay, even if it's a blank string, if I were to run, you can see now it has 4 values. Okay, so that's a good way of getting the length of the variable. Okay, so that should be it. And in the next one, I guess I'll sort of go into more details of how to, I guess, how to make populating an array a bit easy, and printing them out a bit easy using loops. Okay, thanks a lot, and have a great day, guys.